So this is the greatest scheme in the history of the Riddler, the greatest game he's ever played. And here's the thing, everything that happens is important. Everything that goes on is important here. So what Batman Dying City does is it initially picks up with the revelation that the Riddler's gone legit. He's actually launched a company called Nigmatech. Now it does have a cryptocurrency, but that's not really important to anything that goes on. What is important here is no one really believes that he's gone legit. The mayor certainly doesn't believe it, none of the cops do, and neither does Batman. In fact, Batman shows up and meets Riddler in the middle of the night, right, while Riddler's working and doing his thing, and really just kind of tells him, you better be on the up and up. There better not be some greater scheme going on here, because if there is, I will come for you. But the Riddler simply doesn't take it, right? It's one of these things where he's like, look, I know historically I've been a bad guy, but like I'm a good guy here, right? Like I'm going legit, I'm going straight, right? I am on the straight and narrow here. More so than that, he actually kind of uses the law against Batman. He's like, if anybody here is doing anything illegal, it's you. You broke and entered into this place. You're trespassing, you're breaking the law. So unless you want me to call the cops and have my bodyguard beat you within an inch of your life, you should probably leave. And so you get this really cool line from Batman, right? He says, stay on the lighted path, Nigma, because you know I will be waiting in the dark. That's one of the coolest lines that I think I've ever heard. I absolutely love it. It's phenomenal. But here's the other part of this, right? So one of the things that's been going on here is that Bruce Wayne has kind of moved more into the direction of nonprofit. Yes, Wayne Tech still does its normal Wayne Tech stuff, but moving into the realm of nonprofit has kind of been his mission in a lot of ways since Absolute Power and some of the events that have come before, which is really Bruce Wayne realizing how little impact he has on the city of Gotham. He does what he can with Wayne Tech, historically has, but in terms of like opening free clinics or providing affordable housing for those who wouldn't be able to afford it, they very rarely ever done that. What's crazy about this is that in a lot of ways, the public's response isn't the best. Now, 99% of people are in support of this, but the vocal minority, right, 50 people wanting to sound like 50,000, they are staunchly against it. So much so, they're constantly protesting in the streets. Now that is a very, very important part of this story, and it's something that's going to become incredibly important once we get to the end. But what ends up happening is Bruce Wayne meets with the new CEO of Wayne Tech, a woman by the name of Rowan. Lucius Fox had already stepped down, which is why she's here, but one of the things she tells him is that Wayne Tech's running thin, right? There aren't enough resources to do everything that Bruce Wayne wants to do, because what's happening is that in addition to the resources being stretched, Wayne Tech is focusing on too many things, and it's not focusing enough on the things that make it money. And so what she does is she pitches the idea, we should consider a potential merger with another company. Now, of course, you guys can easily pick up what's being put down here because Bruce Wayne shuts the whole idea down. Right? He's like, not a chance. There's no way that I'm merging Wayne Tech or selling it to anybody. That's never going to happen. And then you find out that Rowan is actually working with the Riddler, right? And what she tells him is like, Wayne's not going to sell. It's never going to happen. It's a family company. It means too much. It's his last link to his parents. It's time for us to invoke Plan B. And so that is when Commander Starr arrives on the scene. Now, here's the funny thing about this. Commander Starr initially approaches Batman as an ally until he shoots a guy, because literally these criminals are like racing through the street right after a heist, and Batman catches up to him, right, like kicks him and the vehicle flips over and yada yada yada. It's Batman stuff happening the way Batman stuff happens. But when Commander Starr shows up, he greets him as an ally. Batman's like, I don't need your help. And Commander Starr's like, no, you're good, I've got him. And he shoots the guy through the leg. And Batman's like, you're firing a gun in the streets? In the middle of a crowded street. But here's what's crazy. Batman goes to chastise this guy, and Vandal Savage, the police commissioner, actually celebrates him and is like, no, this man did what needed to be done, right? And that's what's crazy here, because throughout all of this, the mayor has been complicit in everything. In fact, the mayor was basically an agent for the Court of Owls, passing legislation they wanted to see passed, invoking rules they wanted to see invoked, basically allowing the Court of Owls to control Gotham from a distance. But at this point, he's fed up and he's done. He's like, I'm never doing this again. I'm tired of it. I'm officially out. And so when the cops are foolish enough to turn their guns on Batman, of course, he, throws down his smoke grenades or smoke bombs and he takes off, and Vandal Savage can't arrest him anymore. But more so than that, Vandal Savage looks at Commander Starr and is like, the mayor isn't really quite seeing things the way that I think he should, and he's not doing what's best for Gotham. The city needs you now, Commander Starr, more than it ever has. And that is when you start to realize Commander Starr is kind of in on everything, because you get this monologue from Batman while multiple things happen at the same time. And he says, Gotham is my home, and I'm trying to make it better. But my greatest fear is that it just won't let me, that there are things I cannot see working against me, old things, secret things that drag us into the dirt over and over. I feel it in my chest. Evil is doing the work, and Bruce Wayne will not be able to stop it. Batman is still needed, and it breaks my heart. And so what happens here is that Rowan confronts Bruce Wayne at the same time that the mayor gets back home, and someone kills the mayor. They shoot him with a gun, right? But at the same time, when Rowan is talking to Batman, she says, I couldn't reach you. It was an absolute emergency. There's been a claim filed against you for half of your shares. Bruce, it's really bad. It seems legit. Do you have a brother? Now, here's the thing. Right off the bat, anybody who's familiar with the Batman mythos is like, okay, so Chip Zdarsky's bringing back Lincoln March. Wrong. Lincoln March is not coming back. It's phenomenal the way this whole thing goes down, right? So what ends up happening is in the aftermath of the shooting, of course, it's what you would expect. The Commissioner Gordon is there. He's more or less a private investigator these days. Batman's there, and Harvey Bullock is working for the cops and doing his own investigation. I wouldn't go so far as to say that nobody trusts anyone here. It's one of these things that because Jim Gordon's not the commissioner anymore, even though I'm going to constantly call him that, and because Batman is a vigilante, it's kind of like, let the cops do their job. So for one of the first times in his entire history, Jim Gordon kind of sees what it's like from the other side when Batman's investigating crime scenes. But Bruce kind of goes through, right, and starts talking to various people. He talks to the assistant of the mayor, and it's like, you knew him, right? Like, Miss Tilford, you were this guy's assistant. You would know who would want to kill him. But at the end of the day, she offers all these different leads, but no real conclusions, right? Well, I mean, he fought with Edward Nygma and his lawyers all the time. There's the commissioner that he basically had, a kind of issue with. He said he was going to bring a resolution in the council to have the commissioner fired. This guy named Leonard Knoll, he's just really, really weird. He always made Chris nervous, but none of it's concrete. Right? None of it's concrete here. And so Batman just kind of leaves knowing nothing more than he did before. And so one of the things that happens is that Batman patches in to the interrogation room where the wife of the mayor is being interrogated. Now, here's one of the things that was going on here. Their marriage was incredibly strained. And in fact, she was going to leave with their son and go to Central City. She was going to walk away from the whole marriage. So this kind of creates basically motive, right? That their marriage was so strained and she was so unhappy that she decided to kill him. And the question's asked, right? Like, where were you? Right, last night when the mayor was killed. And she's like, well, I was out with my son. But they were out until midnight, which is kind of a weird time to be out with a 2-year-old. But ultimately, they want to access her phone. She won't let them do it. She asked for a lawyer. And so from the police's perspective, she's basically guilty. She has something to hide, right? And so this leads Batman and Jim Gordon down this path, this kind of question of who's behind this, right? What in the world is going on? Who killed the mayor? Now, here's a crazy thing, right? The answer is fairly obvious, right? But again, Chip Zdarsky's playing games, right? He's leading us down this obvious path, so we'll never expect what comes later on. Because what you do is you switch over to Edward Nygma and Leonard Cole, who are basically working together, talking to the new deputy mayor, right? And as they're talking to him, it's kind of like, hey, you know what's best for Gotham. We know what's best for Gotham. And you know what's best for you. The mayor just died. And you see how easy it is for someone in the political space to be killed like that, right? To be killed in their home. So I'm sure you'll have the best interests of Gotham at heart when you're mayor. And these things we're proposing are what's best for Gotham. You understand, right? So this guy gets what they're putting down, right? If you don't play ball, we'll have you killed. Now, none of this is said overtly, if for no other reason than just plausible deniability. But it's one of these clear things. But then Batman shows up and Batman starts talking to them. Now again, Batman's got nothing to run on, right? This guy's grasping at straws here. And there is a little bit of taunting, right? Like, is this an impromptu wake or is it a celebration of a job well done? It's basically him saying, like, I know you guys were in some way behind the death of the mayor. I need to know who it was, right? Somebody spill the beans. Now, of course, none of these guys are going to talk. No one's going to say anything. And even Leonard just kind of says, like, hey, like, we're businessmen, not murderers. In fact, the only one committing a crime here is you. The restaurant's closed, you're at a private event, and you've broken in. You have no reason to be here, right? So cops, of course, come out, and Batman helps them understand their place in the bigger picture in a way that only Batman can do. He beats the crap out of these guys. He crushes all these guys. And the whole time, Leonard and Nigma are just enjoying their meal, drinking their drinks, and watching it all go down. And so literally it's just like trespassing and assault on police officers. Man, you're brave, right? That's pretty wild. Batman says, I heard rumors there was a new leader of the Court of Owls. Now it makes sense. So the court promised Nigmatech an easy, legit foothold in Gotham. And when that didn't work out as planned, you murdered the obstruction. Now, which one of you pull the trigger? And the response of Leonard is like, he just kind of takes the coin that Batman threw him, right? The kind of verification object that the Court of Owls uses. And he just says, I'm no murderer, though I could have killed poor Christopher a million silent ways. A bullet is loud. Owls are quiet. And so he's like, I'm innocent, right? Yes, I'm leading the Court of Owls, but I'm innocent. We're not the ones who killed that guy. Good luck finding out who it was. And so when Batman goes to investigate the body of the dead mayor, he finds like bleach under the fingernails, these little clues, things like that that indicate that somebody knew how to wash the body of fingerprints and make sure they couldn't be tracked. More so than that, when it comes to this person that's filing a claim against Wayne Tech, right, for like half the shares of the company, that Bruce has kind of told this story, at least as the information seems to indicate, it's a man named William Puford. He's a nurse working at the Cathedral Square Medical Clinic, which basically gets its funding from Wayne Enterprises, and that his mother was also a nurse who worked at Gotham General, the same place that Bruce Wayne's father was a surgeon. And so again, it's really more circumstantial than anything else, but all that really happens is that when Bruce goes to visit Leslie Tompkins, a very old member of the family, and basically a member of the medical community that stitches up superheroes who need it, so almost kind of like a night nurse from Marvel Comics, that she sort of spills the beans on a lot of what happened, right? She's like, look, I don't know the details, right? I don't really know the details of everything that happened, but what I know is this. There was a point where your mom and dad were just unhappy. Your dad was totally caught up in his residency and his job. Your mom was staying in the mansion all the time. There just wasn't a lot of satisfaction going on there. And ultimately, it just sort of led to your father having an affair, right? Now, she's like, again, I don't know the details of it. I don't know everything, but it's one of these instances where Bruce has kind of like this knee-jerk reaction to deny it. But what he tells her is like, the only real image that I have of my parents are what I had when I was a child. I don't really actually know them as people. I just remember them the way a child does. And because he knows Leslie Tompkins so well, and because she's such a very important member of his life, I wouldn't go so far as to say that he takes it as like an absolute truth, but he gives it a lot more credibility. At the very least, there is more to explore here, and there's more to figure out. Now, in the middle of this whole conversation, all those protesters outside, that are growing in number, they invade the whole building. Right, they attack the clinic and start going after people. Now, as far as the protesters are concerned, the biggest gripe they have is that Bruce Wayne, focusing on nonprofit efforts, Wayne Tech, focusing on nonprofit efforts, are doing things like giving, medical assistance to people who aren't here legally and different things like that. So in a lot of ways, it's kind of designed to mirror the current political climate. The bigger point here is that the protesters are growing in number, and they're becoming more and more violent as time goes on. And then Commander Starr shows up. Now again, Commander Starr kind of talks about the idea of how one individual here can basically be a bad actor among a whole group of protesters and make the entire protest look bad. But with all these people out here, he kind of sides with the idea of the protest, right? It's a legitimate protest. It's people who are angry for valid reasons. Wouldn't you agree, Mr. Wayne, right? It's very reminiscent of like Bane from The Dark Knight Rises, right? Corralling people, riling people into their most violent positions, their most violent acts. And so what Bruce does is he travels back to the home of the mayor where he was shot. The idea being that he kind of wants to follow up to the crime scene and see if there's anything he missed. Commissioner Gordon's already there, right? And so of course the two of them basically start investigating everything together, believing that they can draw conclusions, put that information together, and then complete the profile on what actually happened here. And so one of the things that goes on is that Bruce reveals that there was a fresh indent on the floor from a dropped item, right? Based on where Chris fell, he probably had a weapon in his hand pulled from this particular area. The base of the trophy does not line up with the dust. The killer placed it back, but was not exact in doing so. And Jim asked the question, like, why, right? Why put it back? It doesn't really make any difference when it comes to the evidence. But the response of Batman? Panic. He knows how to kill, but didn't intend to. I talked to Nigma. He and his new partner, a man named Leonard, the current head of the Court of Owls. Leonard said that it wasn't him, that he'd do this quietly. And Nigma is not this base. Nakano's death would be spectacular. He would want the world to know that he did it, which is true, right? Nigma does not shy away from his murders. I mean, for God's sake, right? In the New 52, he flooded the whole city of Gotham because they couldn't figure out a riddle, right? And so that's where Jim is like, sure, right? But what if it's a feint? Kill the mayor in a way they would never be associated with. And that's where Batman's like, I mean, it's possible, but these are the kind of men that want you to know they did it, that they're untouchable. But in the middle of this whole conversation, Harvey Dent chimes in. And Harvey Dent's like, okay, look, so we cracked the wife's phone and we got some information. It's bad. I've managed to hold it off from Vandal Savage and those guys. They don't have it yet, but there were a lot of texts, right? His wife was having an affair. Crazy enough, so was the mayor. They were both cheating on each other. But in the midst of this revelation, and with Jim Gordon overhearing it, he immediately draws a gun on Batman. And he's like, I was defending myself, right? Like, I didn't mean to do it. I didn't mean to do it. And Batman's like, you would pull a gun on me? Really? You would pull a gun on me? And immediately attacks Jim Gordon, cracks his glasses and sends him crashing to the ground. But the whole time Jim Gordon's like, I didn't mean to. You have to believe me. I didn't mean to kill him. And that's where the revelation comes. Jim Gordon killed the mayor, right? It's nuts. Again, bear with me here because the reveal is phenomenal. It's so it's so amazing. It's so amazing when this goes down. Okay. And so what this does is it switches over to a interim moment in the story where you learn about how the affair happened and how it was that Jim Gordon and the mayor's wife got together. Now, a lot of it's not significant. It just kind of establishes what's going on here. The long and short of it is that Jim Gordon, as a private detective, was basically hired by her in order to see if her husband was having an affair. At that point in time, it didn't seem to be the case. At least Jim Gordon wasn't really able to find any information that it was true. But as they began to spend time together, they developed a kind of connection here. A lot of it was because of the fact that she felt so alone and so abandoned because her husband spent so much time at work. It's really designed to kind of mirror how it was that Bruce Wayne's father would have ended up having an affair with a nurse, spending so much time at work and not enough time with his wife. There are a couple of attempts, right, on this woman by, henchmen and so on and so forth. But through all of this, right, Jim Gordon showing himself to be brave and that kind of thing, they effectively start to fall in love. So much so, they talk about the idea of just running away together, right? Different things along those lines. Now, all that is particularly important here. The reason being because it all comes to a head when the two of them were supposed to meet up. The night that she said she was going to leave her husband and she was going to take her son and they were going to run away, Jim Gordon went to the house to get them. And the mayor was there. And that's when the fight broke out. There was a lot of shouting here, right? Because the mayor figured out that Jim Gordon was sleeping with his wife. And so when this argument starts, right, it's Jim Gordon saying things like, she doesn't love you anymore, Chris. Your marriage is a sham. Just let her be happy for once. And the response of the mayor is like, happy? Right? You think blowing up her life and our sons to live with an old has-been will finally make her happy? She's clinically depressed. And I've spent years trying to help her. You're just a distraction. And he says, why can't you see? You're the reason that she's depressed. You ignore her, deny her, and your son of your precious time. And then some 2-bit crime family tries to kidnap her because of you and your actions. But then the mayor fires back and is like, your wife was killed because of your job. Your daughter was shot through the spine by a maniac because of your job. Who are you to lecture me? And so in this moment, when the mayor goes to attack him, Jim Gordon freaks out, pulls his gun and fires on him. And so that's when you switch back to what's going on right now. This whole investigation and all this information being presented to him by Harvey Bullock. He's like, look, man, right? Like precise shots, motive, thanks to the wife and the commissioner job. I'm sorry, Jim, but like there's enough here to charge. There's enough to bust you on this, man. Like all the evidence points to it. We know it was you. And so what Jim says is like, dig deeper. You have to dig deeper. It wasn't me who did it. Like I did not shoot this guy. It was never an intentional thing. And so as part of his investigation, Batman kind of picks a fight, basically, with like Leonard and his henchmen. Technically, it's him showing up to what he knows to be the house of the man who's filing the claim that he's Bruce's brother and deserves half the shares of Wayne Enterprises. But in the middle of this fight, he attaches a tracking device, onto Leonard Cole's shoe, which of course, Leonard is completely and totally unaware of. And so Batman, doing his own investigation, wondering whether or not Commissioner Gordon really is guilty, goes back to the place, right? Without Jim Gordon there, he can basically conduct his investigation with no distraction whatsoever. And what he finds there is a little piece of black plastic, right? He says a black plastic sliver, 1 inch long, gloss coating from a device of some kind, maybe something that recorded the murder. Cameras on site were wiped. Bullock is right. Jim might have done this. But God help me, I need to see it. I need to see him pull that trigger to take that life, because in his mind, Batman just can't see Jim Gordon callously pulling the trigger and killing a mayor. But ultimately, he shows back up to confront Jim Gordon, and he's like, here's the thing, man. You did it. You did it, right? He says all the house drives were wiped, but there were still cameras on the block from various shops. Of course, you avoid those, but cameras do not just pick up what's in front of them. They capture the things around them in a myriad of ways, from people's reactions to shadows to reflections. A bag with the gun, with evidence, with whatever you use to wipe the scene down with, soon to have your blood-flecked shirt and pants in it, soon to be burned along with you. And that's where Jim is like, I did it. Fine, I did it, right? He confesses to it, right? Like, I barely remember it like it was a dream, but I did it. But the problem with this statement is he says it as if he himself can't believe it. Now, it's one thing to commit this act in the heat of the moment, but to still be somewhat rational after it's done. And all the clues of the crime scene indicate that while things happen in a panic, that seemingly the person who did it, because they put stuff back and things like that, were of sound enough mind to try to clean up behind themselves. It does not sound like the actions of an emotionally irrational man firing off a gun in the heat of the moment. It sounds like a guy who knew what he was doing. And so in witnessing all of this, Jim Gordon takes his glasses off and sits them down. And Batman looks at it and says, wait a minute, your glasses, they were broken in the fight, right? And he says, yeah, like Chris got a punch in. And he says, the piece I recovered is too thin. The arms of the frame are hollow. Now, of course, Vandal Savage realizes they're there and immediately sounds the alarm, right? So cops are just, descending onto Batman. And he's like, block the door. I need time. Hold him off. And so Batman's going through these glasses, right? And he's like, where did you get these? And Jim's just like, Wallace Optical. Some kid banged up my old ones, but I just got an email from my optometrist that they had come in. And that's when Batman gives us this amazing line, and the truth shall set you free, because he says the glasses have technology in them, condensed, refined elements of a design I know well. Mind control, the Mad Hatter. But why? What would Jervis Tetch have to gain? And he's like, think, damn it, think. And then it hits him, right? You laid it out for me all along. It was not Nigma Tech, it was Nigma Tetch. You had a path out of your old life, but you didn't take it. You just couldn't help but sign your work. Riddler, I'm coming for you. Because what the Riddler had created were mind-controlled glasses. It's crazy. But here's the thing, that's not even the end of it. That's not even the end of it, right? I told you guys, it's like the Riddler's greatest scheme. It's so phenomenal. Because at that point, all the protesters in Gotham have gone mad, right? They're absolutely losing their minds. They're like attacking Wayne Enterprises. They're setting stuff on fire, running through the building. And like Commander Starr is just watching it all. And he just won't do anything about it. And so where Batman reveals to Jim Gordon that it was the Riddler who basically made all this happen, is Batman runs out of the place. He throws the glasses to Harvey Bullock and is like, it's Jim Gordon's glasses, right? Mad Hatter designed mind control. It's Nigma, Harvey. The Riddler framed him with glasses. It's so obvious now, right? Like, that's the greatest thing about the Riddler. It all becomes obvious because at that point you switch over to Enigma when he's talking to Leonard, and Riddler's just like, yeah, man, like Batman's on his way here. He says it took him a while to clue it, but he just left Gordon and the glasses. And that's where Leonard's like, why are you so happy? And the response of the Riddler, you just don't get it, right? You and your secretive owls working behind the scenes, trying not to engage. It's the thrill, laying out a puzzle, seeing him try to work through it. Besides, I'm not going to prison again. And where Leonard thinks he's crazy, right? The Riddler's like, no, I'm rich. And in any case, I'm on the verge of taking Wayne Industries, securing my part of our bargain. You delivered a mayor I can walk over, plus owl goons for the incoming fight. So I believe we're done here, comrade. But here's the crazy thing, right? What happens when the Riddler falls for his own trap? That's the cool thing here, right? And you guys are going to see what I'm talking about here in a minute. Because once Batman catches up to the Riddler, it plays out exactly the way that you would expect, right? Riddle me this. I'm a helpful patch of fluid. What am I? And that's where Batman says, assist. Assist her, right? And then like takes the girl down, basically the assistant of the mayor. But it's like riddle after riddle after riddle, right? The Riddler says, an easy one, but another life is on the line, detective. My unwitting assistant, the increasingly mad Hatter. Did you like my modifications? I've outfitted all of my security with those glasses. You have 5 minutes, Batman. Which floor is he on? Or would you rather stop the terrorists from blowing up buildings? Tell me, what's Victor's favorite number? And so while Batman's making his way through this place, it's a combination of traditional security that Enigma owns along with Court of Owls agents. Batman figures out floor 32, right? The number 32 is Victor Freeze's favorite number. But again, he's met by all these henchmen. Now, of course, he overcomes them pretty quickly, which is kind of exactly what you would expect. But again, throughout all of this, the Riddler keeps taunting him. Mind-controlled security guards are not the best fighters, which is why I've borrowed a couple of henchmen from a friend. Who's to say why they did me such a favor? The Court of Owls is a Riddler wrapped in a mystery inside an enigma. But he says, I've missed this. I've missed you. I've been doing it wrong all these years. I should have seen you as a shining example. Everything's better with money. And so eventually Batman gets to this door, right? AI Ice. And he says, you've noticed my little technological breakthrough to cool down my servers, a learning model to help maintain the optimal temperatures needed. But I suppose AI Ice could be read as Alice, freed from his dark wonderland, right? And that's where he finds Jervis Tetch. And literally Mad Hatter's just like, he's perverted all my designs, right? Like, you have to find a way to stop him. But that is where Batman flips the script on the Riddler. Because Riddler chimes in again and he says, here's another one, Batman. Not in pounds, but I measure weight. I won Beauty's love, which started as hate. And Batman's like, enough. Right? He says, crime and punishment. When I went to your office, Dostoevsky, at the restaurant, it was the darker the night, the brighter the stars. Maikov, a Russian poet. And it was Churchill who said, a riddle wrapped in a mystery, wrapped inside an enigma. He was referring to Russia. And he says, Leonid is a Russian name. The Court of Owls is under Russian control. And that's where Riddler says, it would seem so. Not a bother to me, but I suspect a bother to you. And that's where Batman reveals what's really going on here. He says, Nigma, for someone so damn smart, you're an absolute fool. Your company has created software that could encrypt and decrypt the world's most secure servers. If Leonid works for the Russian government, that software could give them access to everything. Banks, private data, nuclear weapons, and you just gave his owls access to all of it. And the Riddler never saw it coming, had no idea that's what he had done. He had assumed there was just some kind of undisclosed, goal that the Court of Owls was trying to serve. They're a mystery to everybody. The Court of Owls is a worldwide organization. Who knows why they do what they do? But it's the arrogance of the Riddler catching up to him. The fact that no one could outsmart him. No one could get the upper hand on him. And so for a moment, the two work together, right? Like Riddler's totally flabbergasted by all this, and Batman's like, your primary server, which floor is it? And Riddler's like, 21. And he says, I'm trying to shut it down, but something's blocking me. And so Batman, of course, finally gets up to where the servers are at, but the problem is that all the information has already been taken, right? The cryptography code, basically what they need to decrypt everything. And so Leonard, being the one having it, Batman refers back to the tracking device that he put on his foot. Now, the whole time all this is happening, Nigma's losing his mind, right? He's so pissed. The fact that somebody got the better of him is absolutely hilarious. So while Batman goes after Leonard, Gordon goes after Nigma, and he almost beats him to death. Right? The idea that like Edward Nigma would have slapped a pair of glasses on Jim Gordon that drove him to unwittingly kill the mayor through mind control leaves him flabbergasted. And so what ends up happening is that while Batman is literally racing to the airport to try to catch Leonard before he takes off, he says, Tracker has Leonard at Gotham Airfield. If he truly is a Russian agent, his getting away will be the start of World War III. But the part that I just can't get yet is this Commander Star and the tearing down of Bruce Wayne's work, sowing the seeds of chaos in Gotham. Was it just for distraction? Star works for Leonard. Riddler's last riddle gave me that connection and what I'm up against. And here's where it gets amazing, because I think for some of you guys, your jaw is gonna hit the floor, right? He says, not in pounds, but I measure weight. I won Beauty's love, which started as hate. And he says, the beast won Beauty's love. And for the first part, he's talking about kilograms, abbreviated as KG. Commander Star is KGBeast. And dude, as soon as that happened, I was just like, what? As soon as I got that revelation, KGBeast is like one of the only people that Batman's ever actually killed. But then it turned out he didn't actually lock him in a room to die. He told Commissioner Gordon about his location. Come on, man. DC should have just let Batman leave that guy there to die. But there's this amazing comic in Tom King's run where there's not one word spoken. Actually, I think they talk maybe in like the first panel, the first like one or two panels, but like it's this knockdown, drag out fight between Batman and KGBeast. And like Batman breaks his neck, right? And all, dude, it's nuts, right? He breaks almost all the bones in this guy's body. It's absolutely chaotic. We covered it, and I'll post a link to the Batman playlist if you want to check it out. But again, when Batman finally catches up to Leonard, right? Initially, it's Leonard talking to his handlers, right, in Russia. You know, hey, like we secured the cryptograph and we're on our way and everything's cool. Until it's not, because Batman's on the plane and he blows a hole in the thing, right? So like all these guys get sucked out of the back. Batman tries to save a couple of them, but of course these guys end up perishing. So technically Batman kills. And then in turn, Leonard goes to grab a gun. Batman incapacitates this guy. The whole time that's going down, KGBeast corralling all these protesters together, inciting just their absolute madness and anger, literally just starts going on this amazing rant, which is very reminiscent of like the whole speech from Bane in The Dark Knight Rises. He says, Gotham belongs to us. Gotham belongs to its citizens. We built this city, and the elite would give it away, have it run through with beggars and criminals invading our city for handouts to steal your jobs. We need to show them that we have the power. And so again, it is using people's fear against them, inciting riots, driving the city to madness. And so once you switch back to Batman in Leonard, of course, with a handgun, goes to fire off some shots. Batman blocks them, and they all basically, end up flying back at Leonard, and they hit the pilots, and the plane is just on a collision course at that point. Batman asks the question. He says, I understand the play for Nigma's technology, right? The ability to control the world's information. It's a very old scheme, but it's a successful one, so it makes perfect sense. But why Commander Star? Why tear down what Bruce Wayne was building? And the response of Leonard is kind of crazy here. He says, isn't it obvious, detective? Gotham City, its despair, its horrors, ruled by the wealthy few from the shadows and the light, it's America. We use it to scare children back home, to remind citizens of what's right. Gotham is our boogeyman, a symbol of everything wrong with your country. The Court of Owls had the tools, the levers, all your people needed. And so at that moment, Batman starts to realize the whole reason KGBeast was sent to Gotham to incite all that riot and madness was for propaganda. Nothing else. So it could all just be sent back to Russia. And it's like, see, this is why we don't want to be like those guys. That's it. That's all it was. It was political nonsense. And so with the controls dead, Batman does and has what may be the greatest moment in the history of a Batman comic, because he gets a hold of Harvey Dent, right? He's like, I'm in a 100-foot wingspan jet headed for 17th Street, touching down at Albrecht. I need the street cleared for 5 blocks. And Harvey's like, on it. Right now, of course, Vandal Savage chimes in and is like, no, right? Belay that order. Batman's simply trying to draw you away from this whole great big huge protest. Here's the crazy thing about being a police commissioner. Of what use are you if no one follows your orders? And everybody ignores him. And all the cops go to clear the street. So Batman comes flying down, right? Comes crashing down in this plane. And right when it lands on this street, right? He blows the wings off, right? In order to make sure it doesn't smash down buildings. When he comes crashing down, he comes crashing right where KGBeast is at. So he comes lunging out of the cockpit and throws a batarang at KGBeast. And he's like, all right, big boy, let's dance. And like immediately the two of them start going at it. And it's just like a fight, like a knockdown, drag out, beat each other to the death type of fight. And here's a crazy thing. The whole time, KGBeast is revealing his hand. He's telling Batman what it is that he's doing and why. He's telling him like, yes, I'm an agent of the Soviet government. And yes, my job is to basically sort propaganda here. I riled your people up. I drove out the worst in them because that's what they wanted to be. I didn't force them to do this. They chose to. They made that choice. Blame me all you want to. I just revealed the darker side of your own citizenry. But Batman's counter argument here is that was never the case, right? He says, I hear the blood rushing through me. My anger takes over. I was helping people, making lives better in Gotham. It was the closest I felt to my mother, my father, rebuilding neighborhoods, not through terror and raining down on madmen, but through giving people a chance, giving them what they need to be better. Leonard and KGBeast poisoned that well. And with Riddler's help, they convinced me my friend was a murderer. After everything my city has gone through, my family and myself, I'm more pissed off than I've ever been. And he almost kills KGBeast. I mean, he beats this guy within an inch of his life. I mean, he's like punching him, blood's going everywhere, the whole 9 yards. And he says, you're a great fighter, Anatoly. On your best day, you might even beat me, but not today, not with this righteous anger. I tell myself to stop. I beg myself to stop because I feel them in their eyes, and my city needs to stop with the violence. I have a speech in me about not falling for the rhetoric of a masked man, but sometimes I forget that I am one. I can see some shame in the crowd's eyes. For today, that's a start. Harvey's exhausted voice chirps in my ear. Nigma's in custody. Jim's safe. It's a win, but it sure doesn't feel like it. And so one of the final things he does, right, later on that week, he goes to visit this guy, right, the man who made the claim. And he's like, so why did you drop your claim? Right? Why did you actually drop your claim against Wayne Enterprises? And this guy's response, because look at you, man. You're a wreck, right? Like you're a mess. It's only just now that you're actually using all your wealth and power to influence the city and to make it better. But you could have done that any time before. You could have done that at any point. And instead, you didn't. You kind of left things as they were. And now that you're having a change of heart, I look at you and I think about what my mom thought when she saw you, right? Knowing that you were the son of Thomas Wayne, knowing what your father stood for, and realizing how far you had fallen, realizing how little you represented what your father stood for. And he's like, money changes people. It changes the way they look at you. It changes the way they see you. And so I didn't want to have anything to do with that. Honestly, I'm perfectly content down here in this clinic helping people on the ground level. Because the reality is, despite having nothing, I've done far more for this city than you ever have. But with that being said, guys, we're gonna bring this video to an end. I told you, it's phenomenal. It's the Riddler's greatest scheme. I absolutely loved it. Thank you all for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, drop a like, and I will catch you all later. Peace.